Magic, Chapter 8. When I woke up, I felt Dinah's little gunny sag body under the covers. I rolled over onto my tummy and hugged her tight, not caring that the girls at school would make fun of me even more if they knew I played with dolls. She had a little bit of Gran inside her, just like me. Dinah had been out in the woods all night, but her clothes weren't dirty at all. I checked, and her dress was still clean and crisp, and her hair trailing from under her head wrap was fluffy and soft. She smelled like pine trees and cinnamon. It made me think of Gran all over again, and so I pretended to talk with Dinah like she was my grandmother. "Where were you all night?" I asked. I moved her head with my little finger as though she was answering my question. "Dis my new frock, Edie. Had to go have me a little fun." I laughed at the voice I used for Dinah's, high and whiny. "That's true, I guess." I sat up in bed and lifted her up with me. "Tell me, how come I don't know you could walk by yourself?" Her little red stitched mouth smiled. "You don't know everything about the world, least not yet." I smoothed Dinah's crepe wool hair and placed her on the bed, then shoved my hand through my devil's shoestrings bracelet and got up to get ready for school. On the way to the washroom, I shook Jake awake. He groaned and threw his pillow at me, but I was too fast. I moved out of the room, laughing all the way. I was hungry thanks to my adventures the night before, and all I wanted was rice for some reason. But Mama was already dishing up our breakfast of steaming grits. As we ate, a car pulled up the dirt road that led to our place. I rushed to the window to peek out, elbowing Jay so we could both see. It was a police car. Mama craned her neck to see us well. "Lord, I don't need today to start off with no foolishness." "You going to be all right?" Doc asked. When Mama nodded, he took his opportunity to leave out of the back door. It was Sheriff Edwards again. He parked by the chicken coop and got out, unfolding his height like a sheep. He took his hat off the seat next to him, but he didn't put it on. Instead, he tucked it under his arm and made his way up to the house. We ran back to the table and sat like we'd been there all along. Before he could knock, Mama smoothed her dress and pulled the screen door open. The sheriff's brown hair was damp around the edges, and his shirt was still pressed straight with the sharp creases in it. "Mighty early for a visit, Sheriff," Mama said, blocking the door with her whole body. She looked about half his size, but the sheriff stayed a respectable distance away from the open door. "Sorry about that, Miss Turner, but I was hoping I might get some eggs." "Eggs?" Mama repeated, surprised. Me and Jay looked at each other, just as confused as Mama. "There's plenty of eggs in the market. Why he wants our eggs?" Jay whispered to me. "I don't know," I told him, tracing the vines in my bracelet. When Mama didn't answer, Sheriff Edwards said, "Oh, and some corn, too, if you have any." Mama stood there staring at him, and he added, "Please?" That little word somehow put her into action. She put 6 eggs into a cardboard container and placed it in a peach basket. Then she added 4 ears of corn from the box she was planning to take to the roadside stand to sell once we left for school. "And would you add a jar of your fig jam? I'd be grateful." He pulled out his wallet to pay for it all. Mama handed him the basket of food, and he placed a few bills in her hand. "This is too much," he said with a frown. "I don't take charity." I didn't think you did, but I got first pick of everything today, and I expect that cost a bit more." Mama still frowned, but she didn't say anything. She slid the bills in her apron pocket. "Anything else, Sheriff?" He looked over at me and Jay where we sat at the table. Then he took a big, deep breath. "I spoke to him yesterday, Deputy Collins, about harassing folks without cause. He didn't take it too well, but I wanted you to know." Mama balled her hands up into fists at her side. "I don't know you made things better or worse for us, Sheriff." "I hope better. Now he knows I won't stand for such actions. You're one man. Lots of others out there will take his side." Mama sighed and rubbed her temples. She looked down at us. "Then where will it be?" "Mama," I said, touching her apron, "me and Jay will help keep the family safe." She nodded, then looked up at the sheriff. "Is that all?" "That's all, Mrs. Turner." He stepped back from the open door, put his hat on, nodded at each one of us. Then he clomped down the stairs, carrying his basket of food. A moment later, the car started and pulled away. Mama sighed and shut the door. She shuffled back over to the kitchen table and sank into a chair. "What's he going to do now?" Jay asked. "Do we need to stop going to school?" I added. "No." That drew Mama's back straight upright. "You will keep on as usual. Go to school the same way you always do, but be sharp. Look around you. Be aware of anyone creeping around. If you see anything strange, you get on back here, understand?" "Yes, ma'am," we both said. Jay went back to his breakfast, but I saw the worry on Mama's face. She looked out the window towards Doc's cabin and bit her lip. I knew what she was thinking. Deputy Collins would be coming back, and coming back mad, and there was nothing any of us could do about it. I felt scared and helpless all at the same time. Seeing Mama worry when she almost always had an answer for everything was the worst part. My tummy felt wobbly, rough as the ocean during a storm. I pushed my bowl away towards Jay, and he dug into the rest of my breakfast. Could we trust Sheriff Edwards to help us? Or will we have to fix this thing with Deputy Collins ourselves? Doc had left as soon as the sheriff arrived. Was he headed off to make a potion, or was he leaving Mama to handle things like Daddy did all those years ago? Mama busied herself getting her last things ready for the market. She put Jay's lunch together, scooping Sea Island red peas on top of steaming rice. Well, I usually love peas. I didn't want any today. I asked for my rice plain. You sure, Jez? Plenty of peas here, she said as she got a small bowl out of the cabinet. Yes, ma'am. Mama shrugged, then scooped up the warm rice and covered it with a lid. You kids head on off to school now and remember what I said. She hugged both of us. If you see Doc in his cabin, send him in here. Jay scraped his dish clean and put it in the sink along with his. Then he grabbed his books and lunch and made for the cabin. Mama's gathering up her blue metal cash box and getting her crates of jams and jellies and baskets ready to go. I touched her arm, and she stopped rustling around the kitchen long enough to look at me. It's going to be okay, Mama, I said. Do you want my bracelet? No, thank you. That's yours, Jez. She smoothed her hand over her pigtails. And you're right. It's going to be fine. You go on to school. I didn't want to leave her, but I grabbed my books and my lunch and raced off after Jay. Classes were so much fun that morning that I almost forgot about Deputy Collins. Today was our first music appreciation lesson, and we listened to a classical opera song followed by some big band jazz tunes from Duke Ellington. I knew the answer when I got called up to the chalkboard in math, but my good day changed at lunchtime. In the cafeteria, I sat with Susie again at a sun-warmed table near the door to outside. The cool breeze coming inside rustled my paper bag. I took out my dish of rice and a spoon and set it beside my thermos of tea. I lifted the tinfoil wrapper off, and a voice interrupted me. You're still coming to school, little witch baby? Letty and her group of girls had already gone through the cafeteria line and were standing above me with their trays of food. Her nose was tilted up high in the air like she was trying to make herself look taller than she really was. Susie groaned. Go away and let us eat in peace. I rolled my eyes and decided not to answer. I didn't owe her my attention. But ignoring Letty didn't work. I thought you'd be in jail by now with all the other witches. Letty was grinning when I lifted my head, but I wasn't looking at her. I was looking at the girls who surrounded her. Many of them I knew from last year, and most had parents who had come to Doc for something. I stared straight into the eyes of those girls, pretending to look down on my family when I knew they benefited from our magic. A few of the girls turned their faces away. I was tired of hearing her talk about how I was different because my family held on to our traditions and our history while we studied and learned and improved ourselves at the same time. I touched my devil's shoestrings bracelet and looked at each one of the girls as I said her name aloud. Letty, Wanda, Ruth, Brenda, Evelyn. What are you doing? Letty looked confused. Her girls all looked at each other, then at me, then back at their leader. It was like they were seeing her uncomfortable for the first time. I smiled. I wasn't doing any kind of spell or anything, but making her feel worse made me feel better. But Letty quickly regained her composure. Well, what can you expect from someone like that? One of her friends gave me a hateful smile. Like what, Letty? My head was light. Maybe it was that feeling Doc was talking about. The feeling something bad was going to happen. I held my breath. She's a B word. A gasp went up from the whole crowd that had gathered around the table when Letty approached. It was followed by an ooh that was just as loud. My face burned with heat and shame, although I didn't know what for. I knew she used a bad word, but it was one that I didn't exactly know the meaning of. Letty went on, and one of those evil root people. Look at that ugly bracelet. It looks like it had bugs living in it. Root isn't evil, I shouted back at her. You're evil for all the nasty things you say. Letty cackled. She admits it. She's one of those root witches that poison people's minds. My mom says you can't expect anything from them. They don't know any better. Before I could open my mouth to respond, Susie shot up. She marched over to the whole group of girls to face Letty. They were almost eye to eye, but Susie was taller. You will go away right now, she said, or else. Susie fixed Letty with a stare that made her take a step back. I knew that look, but I'd never seen it on Letty's face. She was scared. She put her nose in the air and turned away, but I noticed her voice shook a bit when she spoke. Come on, girls. We don't need to stick around here. The witch baby might turn us into frogs or something. Susie sat back at the table with me. Are you okay? Yeah, I managed to say, even though my throat felt like it was closing up. Thanks for sticking up for me. Of course, she said in a soft voice. We're lunch buddies. I nodded, but I didn't finish eating. The whole experience had made me lose my appetite.